Why did Princess Margaret dislike Princess Diana? Have you ever wondered why two of the most famous women in modern royal history never seemed to share a warm relationship? On one side stood Princess Margaret, the younger sister of Queen Elizabeth II, a woman born into privilege, tradition, and an era when royal rules were rarely questioned. On the other side was Princess Diana, a young aristocrat whose warmth, vulnerability, and extraordinary popularity changed the monarchy forever. For years, people have repeated the claim that Princess Margaret disliked Princess Diana. But was it really hatred? Was it jealousy? Was it disappointment? Or was it something far more complicated than the headlines ever suggested? The truth is that the relationship between Princess Margaret and Princess Diana reflected a much bigger story. It was the story of an old royal world colliding with a new one. It was a clash between tradition and modern celebrity, between unquestioning duty and emotional openness, between private royal life and relentless public attention. To understand why Margaret struggled to accept Diana, we first need to understand who Princess Margaret really was. Margaret was born into a royal family where appearances mattered almost as much as reality. From childhood, she learned that every public smile, every gesture, and every conversation represented not only herself but also the crown. She grew up during a period when members of the royal family rarely discussed their emotions in public. Personal happiness often came second to responsibility. She experienced heartbreak herself. Her relationship with Group Captain Peter Townsend became one of the greatest royal love stories never allowed to have a happy ending. Because Townsend was divorced, marrying him would have created enormous constitutional and religious complications. Eventually, Margaret chose duty over love. That painful chapter shaped her for the rest of her life. Many historians believe it reinforced an idea she already held, that being royal required sacrifice, self-control, and acceptance of difficult realities. Years later, when Diana entered the royal family, Margaret expected the young princess to embrace those same principles. But Diana belonged to a different generation. Although she also came from an aristocratic background, Diana's personality was remarkably different from many senior royals. She connected naturally with ordinary people. She laughed easily, showed affection openly, and wasn't afraid to reveal emotion. Those qualities made millions fall in love with her almost immediately. Within months of her engagement to Prince Charles, Diana had become one of the most photographed women on earth. Crowds gathered wherever she went. Children adored her. The media couldn't get enough of her. Every newspaper wanted her picture on the front page. Every television station wanted footage of her latest appearance. Her popularity exploded faster than almost anyone expected. For some members of the royal family, this sudden fame was both impressive and worrying. The monarchy traditionally worked as a team rather than a collection of individual stars. The institution preferred steady respect over celebrity. Diana unintentionally became something different. She wasn't simply a princess. She became an international phenomenon. Princess Margaret had spent decades understanding the unwritten rules of royal life. Never complain publicly. Never seek attention. Never allow personal feelings to overshadow the monarchy. Never let the institution become secondary to the individual. Then Diana arrived and changed everything. To be fair, Diana didn't necessarily set out to break those rules. She was only 19 years old when she became engaged to Prince Charles. Imagine entering one of the world's oldest and most scrutinized institutions before your 20th birthday. Imagine every hairstyle making headlines, every outfit being analyzed, every smile interpreted, every mistake appearing on newspaper front pages around the world. The pressure was unimaginable. Yet Margaret's generation believed pressure was simply part of royal life. You endured it. You adapted. You remained silent. This difference in outlook became one of the biggest divides between the two women. Margaret respected discipline. Diana wanted understanding. Margaret believed emotions belonged behind palace walls. Diana increasingly felt honesty mattered more than silence. These weren't merely personality differences. They reflected two entirely different visions of what monarchy should look like. During family gatherings, Margaret was known for her sharp wit and sometimes intimidating personality. Many relatives found her amusing. Others found her formidable. She could be charming one moment and brutally honest the next. She expected proper etiquette, careful manners, and respect for royal traditions. Diana, especially in her early years, was still learning those traditions. Like any newcomer, she occasionally made mistakes. Some were small, others attracted enormous media attention. Margaret wasn't particularly known for offering gentle reassurance. She belonged to a generation where newcomers were expected to observe, learn quietly, and improve over time. Diana, however, often felt isolated. Several biographies suggest that she struggled to find emotional support within the institution during her early years. Whether Margaret fully understood Diana's loneliness remains uncertain. What is clear is that the two women never developed the close bond Diana shared with some other family members. Their personalities simply moved in different directions. Another important factor was Margaret's loyalty to Queen Elizabeth II. Few people were more protective of the Queen than her younger sister. Margaret saw defending the monarchy almost as a personal mission. Whenever criticism threatened the institution, Margaret often reacted strongly. As Diana's marriage to Charles deteriorated, media coverage became increasingly dramatic. Stories of marital unhappiness filled newspapers. Rumors spread constantly. Every interview, every photograph, every public appearance generated speculation. From Margaret's perspective, these public conflicts risked damaging the monarchy itself. Whether fair or unfair, she viewed public exposure of private family problems as dangerous. Diana viewed matters differently. She increasingly believed silence protected no one. As the years passed, Diana became more willing to speak honestly about her struggles. That honesty transformed public attitudes. Millions admired her courage. Others within royal circles worried about the consequences. Margaret almost certainly belonged to the second group. Her life experience had taught her that royal survival depended upon discretion. Diana's experience convinced her that emotional truth mattered just as much. Neither woman completely understood the other's perspective. That misunderstanding slowly widened over time. There was another element people often overlook. Princess Margaret had lived through decades of press intrusion herself. She understood exactly how ruthless journalists could be. She had endured scandals, rumors, criticism, and relentless attention long before Diana entered the royal family. Rather than fighting the media publicly, Margaret generally accepted it as an unpleasant part of royal existence. Diana's relationship with the press became much more complicated. At times she used media attention strategically. At other times she felt deeply victimized by it. This unpredictable relationship confused many senior royals. Margaret preferred consistency. She disliked uncertainty. She valued predictability. Diana's life often appeared anything but predictable. As Diana's popularity continued growing throughout the 1980s, another uncomfortable reality emerged. In many public appearances, crowds seemed more interested in Diana than anyone else. People waited hours just to catch a glimpse of her. Children rushed toward her. Patients in hospitals smiled when she visited. Charities experienced enormous increases in attention after receiving Diana's support. International newspapers frequently placed Diana, not the Queen, not Prince Charles, and not other senior royals, on their front pages. This extraordinary popularity changed public expectations of the monarchy. Some historians believe that older members of the royal family struggled to adapt to this transformation. Not because they disliked Diana personally, but because they feared the institution becoming centered around one individual rather than the crown itself. Margaret likely shared some of those concerns. She had spent her entire life protecting royal traditions. Suddenly, those traditions seemed to be evolving before her eyes. For someone who valued continuity above almost everything else, that change could feel deeply unsettling. The story between Princess Margaret and Princess Diana, therefore, cannot simply be reduced to personal dislike. It was a meeting of two different worlds. One believed strength meant silence. The other believed strength meant honesty. One accepted sacrifice without public complaint. The other hoped openness could inspire compassion. Both women carried emotional wounds. Both experienced loneliness. Both understood enormous public pressure. Yet they responded to those pressures in completely different ways. As the royal marriage between Charles and Diana entered increasingly troubled waters, Princess Margaret would soon find herself forced to choose where her loyalty truly belonged. And once she made that choice, her relationship with Diana would never be the same again. In the years after the separation of Prince Charles and Princess Diana, the atmosphere inside the royal family changed dramatically. Relationships that had once been polite became increasingly strained. Trust was harder to find, and every private disagreement seemed to become public knowledge. Princess Margaret remained deeply loyal to the monarchy, and above all, to her sister, Queen Elizabeth II. Throughout her life, she believed that the institution of the crown had to come before personal feelings. From her perspective, public criticism of the royal family, even when it came from someone who had once been a beloved member of it, was deeply damaging. That belief became even stronger after Diana's 1995 BBC Panorama interview. In that interview, Diana spoke openly about her marriage, her struggles, and the pressures she had faced within the royal family. Millions around the world admired her honesty. Others believed she had crossed a line by discussing private family matters on international television. Princess Margaret reportedly belonged firmly to the second group. Several royal biographers have written that Margaret was deeply upset by the interview. She believed that disagreements inside the royal family should remain private, regardless of how painful they were. To Margaret, loyalty meant protecting the institution even during moments of personal heartbreak. According to accounts from royal insiders, Margaret wrote Diana a strongly worded letter after the interview. Although the exact contents have never been officially released, biographers have suggested that the letter expressed Margaret's disappointment and her belief that Diana had failed in her duty to the crown. Whether every detail of those reports is completely accurate remains impossible to verify. The royal family has never officially confirmed the contents of any private correspondence. However, multiple respected historians agree that Margaret's relationship with Diana deteriorated significantly during this period. Yet history is rarely as simple as heroes and villains. Princess Margaret was not simply an angry royal resisting change. She was a woman shaped by an entirely different era. She had sacrificed personal happiness for royal duty. She had endured public criticism without speaking openly. She had spent decades believing that silence protected the monarchy. Princess Diana, meanwhile, represented something entirely new. She believed compassion could be expressed publicly. She connected with ordinary people in ways few royals ever had. She challenged long-standing traditions, sometimes intentionally and sometimes simply by being herself. She showed emotion without apology. That emotional openness changed public expectations forever. Today, members of the royal family speak much more openly about mental health, charity work, and personal struggles than they did during Margaret's youth. In many ways, Diana helped reshape the monarchy for the modern world. Ironically, some of the qualities that made Diana controversial during her lifetime later became strengths embraced by younger generations of royals. When Diana tragically died in Paris in August 1997, the entire world mourned. Millions left flowers, letters, and candles in her memory. The grief was unlike anything Britain had experienced in modern times. Princess Margaret, despite their differences, is believed to have been deeply saddened by Diana's death. Whatever disagreements had existed, they belonged to the past. A young mother of two princes had lost her life far too soon. History often remembers conflicts more vividly than moments of understanding. But the relationship between Princess Margaret and Princess Diana was never simply about dislike. It was about two women shaped by different generations. One believed duty required silence. The other believed courage required honesty. One defended centuries of royal tradition. The other transformed the monarchy by connecting directly with the public. Neither woman was perfect. Both carried emotional scars. Both lived under extraordinary pressure. Both paid a personal price for life inside one of the world's most famous families. So did Princess Margaret truly dislike Princess Diana? The most balanced historical answer is that Margaret strongly disapproved of many of Diana's actions and the way she handled conflicts with the royal family. Their personalities, values, and views of monarchy were fundamentally different. That created distance, tension, and at times resentment. But reducing their relationship to simple hatred ignores the complexity of both women and the extraordinary circumstances they lived through. Their story is not just about conflict, it is about tradition meeting change, duty meeting emotion, privacy meeting modern media. And ultimately, it is a reminder that even those who appear to live fairy tale lives often face profoundly human struggles behind palace walls.